This is the Journey Podcast. We highlight the journeys of our guests, where they've been, where they are now, and where they are going. Let's join them on their journey. Welcome to the Journey Podcast. Today we are joined by Michael McGill, a leader in the technology space. Michael works for the medical service company based in Cleveland, Ohio. And Michael has spent his career in IT, specifically now in IT leadership. And however, we're going to learn from him that IT leadership is a lot different than just straight technical knowledge. It's about communication, it's about leadership, it's about so much more than just knowing the nuts and bolts of the technology space. Michael's a Northeast Ohio native, and he works specifically in the leadership of the highly regulated medical IT space, which is really interesting. Michael is the Chief Information Officer at the medical service company, and I'm really glad to have him joining us today. Thanks, Michael, for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nate. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell us about your position at medical service company. What exactly do you do there? What does a day-to-day look like for you there?
Yeah, Nate. So I'm Chief Information Officer for Medical Service Company. So, my job is to lead us forward with technology, to marry technology with our strategic goals to help us succeed as an organization. So what the day-to-day of that looks like, I lead our technology teams, our infrastructure team, our development team, our data analytics team. And again, I try to make sure we're getting really smart and talented people in those areas. And my job is to help mentor and lead them to help make sure that we're implementing the right technology solutions and to be an innovative technology leader, to try and keep my eye on the horizon and see what technologies are emerging that can help medical service companies succeed.
So you manage a lot of different spaces, and it seems like impossible to know sometimes much of anything or a lot about everything in those spaces. How do you merge those worlds together in your mind to lead them?
Well, I think it's a little bit what I said before. So, I come up through tech. So one, I love all of these different technology things. And over my career, I've had my hands in infrastructure and development and reporting in other areas. So, there's kind of I kind of came up through it and I love it and have a passion for it. So it's easy for me to kind of get with the managers and leaders in these various areas and talk about those things. But, in the end, again, it's not my job to be in the technical weeds of this stuff. It's my job to make sure we have really talented people who are experts in these areas and kind of, let them, lead those areas and, kind of provide their expertise and, for me to give them the support that they need. And again, just make sure at a big picture standpoint, what we're doing aligns with the goals of medical service company.
So how did you make the pivot from the technical side into the leadership side? When did that happen for you?
So, I came up in IT as a hands-on technician. I was a very technical person. And, I don't know that there was one flash of lightning moment, but, there's probably some period of time that I think is best summed up by a Jim Rohn quote, where he says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. I think somewhere along the line, I realized that, continuing to learn a new programming language, to take the next certification test, to just kind of keep working on those technical skills was starting to have diminishing returns. And really my best bet, what I needed to do to continue to develop as a leader was to work harder on myself than those technical skills. So starting to learn some soft skills, some leadership skills. I think, for me, that was the pivot that I had that set me off on more of a leadership path than just really trying to kind of, make progress just strictly as a technician.
So what was there an aha moment with that, or was that something that you came to over time?
Yeah, I would definitely say over time, Nate. I think, there was probably a collection of aha moments that made me realize I needed to learn maybe different, more soft skills, non-technical skills that, certain moments that, kind of let me know I needed to work on emotional intelligence a little bit more. Certain moments that taught me I needed to be effective with managing my time a little bit more. Certain moments that helped me understand I needed to be more of a servant leader than maybe I was being at the time. So I think that's just the pathway of leadership. I don't, you may get some support and some training, but I think ultimately it's your experiences once you start kind of getting into that arena that help you understand what areas you need to work on a little bit harder.
So is any part of your job technical today?
Very minimal. And the less technical I am, the better for medical service company. Again, I'm probably rusty when it comes to technology. I can talk the talk. I love tech, but it's been a while since I've really been the person who's hands-on coding or maintaining the network or anything like that. Again, my job now is to attract and hire and retain really smart and talented IT professionals.
So how does one bridge the gap between the technical and the non-technical? How do you make those two communicate between each other?
Yeah, it is a very interesting part of our job in technology, especially as we kind of emerge more into leadership roles where now we're interfacing with other people within the business and we're sitting down with other people in project meetings, or we're trying to share the vision that we have with other people. And it's, the struggle is real in tech. I think there's this kind of world we live in where, it's our responsibility. We need to get comfortable with the language of the business that we're working for. I work in the healthcare field. I work in the home medical equipment, the home, kind of more of the home care area. And, I need to understand the acronyms. I need to understand equipment. I need to understand what we do as a business so I can align technology with it. But, sometimes, so I need to get comfortable with that. But sometimes in reverse, people have a hard time getting comfortable with the language of technology. I mean, you may have a conversation with somebody and throw API out there and, next thing you know, they're kind of like, I have no idea what you're talking about, which is okay. That's all right. So it is important for us to make sure we're speaking the language of the business and to make sure that we're speaking to the level of our audience. That's what I always tell everyone that I mentor in tech. Just speak to the level that your audience is comfortable with, and then go get more technical from there if they seem like they're open to those types of discussions or feeling comfortable with it. I think a lot of people in tech can be guilty of throwing acronyms and throwing technology term over people's heads, and they just can't keep up. And after 5 seconds, they're lost and they have no idea what you're talking about. So I think it's our responsibility to make sure we're talking at a level that our audience is comfortable with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Try to find what makes sense to them and speak in that way. So tell me, what's one thing in IT leadership that's happened that you didn't expect to happen?
Well, I think a little bit to what I just said. As I transition to a role in leadership, it is really understanding the language of the business and really understanding the language of finance. So again, as you kind of emerge as a leader, you're going to start getting into roles where you're going to have to put together budgets. You are going to have to understand expense, revenue. The first time I came into a leadership role, I was sent a copy of our P&L. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. Maybe my accounting class back in college, I should have paid a little more attention to. Just in my technical role, I really wasn't exposed to that so much. But really, I think for me, emerging as a leader, one of the things that kind of surprised me the most and was maybe a little bit of an oh crap moment when I first got into it was like, all right, I have some catching up to do. People are using words EBITDA and COGS and P&L and kind of all these acronyms and language of finance and business. And it was a little bit of a surprise to me, and I had some catching up to do. I had to reach out to some people on the finance team, say, all right, give me kind of walk through this P&L with me and help me understand what I'm looking at here and what's important and what I need to be looking at. And over time, I'm comfortable with it now, but that was definitely a little bit of a rude awakening as I first kind of emerged into a leadership role.
Yeah, I can gather that as much. There's a lot to think about that with managing all of those departments. Might be more of a technical question, even though your role isn't technical. From a cybersecurity perspective, if you were Dr. Evil, how would you go after attacking a medical company to take them over?
Yeah, when it comes to security, that is something I always stay very humble at. I think that if there's one area that you never want to get too confident in, it's security. You need to always kind of have a kind of a beginner's mindset, a newbie mindset, be humble, and always keep your eye on it. I don't think I would say anything too surprising, because it's the exact area where you see it happening, targeting the people versus the technology. Firewalls are kind of always awake, and they're kind of always paying attention to what they should be doing. And, endpoint protection on my laptop is, as long as I'm making sure it's set up to get regular updates and it's running, it's kind of always awake and always paying attention. People, we get busy and we get an email that looks like it's legit, and we click on a link, and, next thing you know, we have a ransomware, we have some other compromise going on there. So, in any security plan, you need to make sure that the kind of focus on the people, the education, simulated phishing attempts to just make sure, verify that people know how to identify suspicious emails. Again, I don't know that I'm saying anything that Dr. Evil would be surprised for me to hear, because usually what you hear in the healthcare space is a lot of those ransomware attacks. Somebody clicks a link, it gets in, the data gets encrypted, and now a ransom needs to be paid. We've seen that happen in some large healthcare organizations. So, it's always, the people we need to make sure we're coaching and making sure they're comfortable and understand when somebody is trying to make them do something they shouldn't be doing.
So what do you think is what is the biggest challenge you're facing in technology right now?
Yeah, and I would almost like to look at it as an opportunity. Almost anything that's a bigger challenge for me right now is really an opportunity. And there's a big buzzword we use in technology: digital transformation, and digitally transforming our processes, which I think there's actually kind of two phases to that. I think it kind of starts a little bit with what are we doing on paper and how do we digitize those experiences, and you kind of get through that wave. And then I think the next challenge or opportunity is then automating what can be automated in those processes that you've digitized. So again, you may have had a process before that required somebody to like shuffle a piece of paper around from one person to another, and now you've digitized it, but it's still kind of requiring people to take steps that, there's technology out there that's kind of capable of identifying when something's hit a certain point that we can automate it and move it along. So there's kind of an acronym that we're using in the tech, with the tech team and our development team, AATT, automate all the tasks. So I think our biggest challenge and opportunity is kind of looking throughout the organization and say, where do we have people who are just doing very repetitive manual tasks, even in digital platforms, that technology can do, and how can we implement API, RPA, throwing out maybe some acronyms there a little bit, but how can we automate those tasks? So I think that's, a challenge for us as we grow is just what every organization is failing right now, recruitment and hiring challenges. So really, making sure that we can use technology to leverage, to allow the company to be able to grow, and kind of take care of those manual type tasks, grow as the business grows, that the technology is able to just absorb them as much as possible. And our people can focus on quality patient interactions and really doing more of the value-based activities.
That's really interesting. And maybe even looking at those tasks and what is like the best return on investment from, taking the time to develop and figure out the task, kind of work down that there's a lot of time that just goes into that itself, as opposed to actually developing that. So what would you say is the most important lesson you learned over your career of being an IT leader, of being a technical person?
Yeah, I think the most important lesson, Nate, is just realizing that it is about the people. When you kind of come up with a technology background, you're learning to program a computer, you're learning to manage a network, you're learning how to put together a cybersecurity plan, you're learning how to analyze and report on data. It can be very heads down and kind of just focused on the technology. And again, I think a typical pathway for somebody to become a leader in tech is, you kind of prove yourself with your technical expertise. You're going to start off in an entry level role, and you're going to stand out above others with your technical proficiency. And then someone's going to go, oh, hey, Mike's like really good at this technology stuff. Let's go ahead and make him a supervisor or manager of the technology team. And you kind of go into that kind of maybe a little that systemic mindset of like, all right, these people that I'm managing now are kind of pieces like technology that I use to help get things done. And that really, you need to learn that it's about the people. It all starts with the people. Everything we're doing with technology is to solve people problems or to make people's lives better. So, I think just for me, it just was kind of, that was a very important lesson for me, that, in a technical role and being so heads down in technology, kind of when I lifted my head up and here I am in a leadership role, it's about the people. It's about treating people well, listening to people, and making sure that people feel heard and understood.
So what kind of personality strength do you think somebody would maybe, if you believe that they can, better themselves in their personality, or they have to be born with this, but what personality strength do you think somebody needs to be successful in a CIO job or an IT leader, a systems admin job, one of those types of jobs where they're really leading people? What do you think it takes?
Yeah, there's a lot. One personality trait I've kind of developed and kind of be able to kind of put my finger on and call it something. And what I call it is being a pessimistic optimist. And what I mean by that is, one, I don't want to be a pessimist. I mean, it's depressing to go through life as a pessimist. I mean, I kind of like optimist is at the end, I want to be optimist, but in the end, I think what it is it's a trait that you never really settle. You never say, okay, this is good enough, we're going to get complacent. I think almost in every process you see in an organization, you have to kind of say, where is it broken a little bit? Where is it inefficient? Are we doing these repetitive tasks? Where is it insecure? Where are the holes in this? So I think you have to, though I always encourage people to go through life as an optimist and be positive, but I think you always have to have a little bit of an eye of, how can this be better? How can technology make this situation better? How can, in my industry that I work in, how can we use technology to help us care for our patients better? So it's kind of, again, I call it kind of that pessimistic optimist trait of kind of always having an eye to see where can things improve, but not coming from it from a negative mindset.
So what is one piece of advice you would give to somebody starting out in IT leadership? Like, today you're the supervisor, Joe or Jane, and like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What would be that piece of advice you would give them?
Yeah, it kind of goes back a little bit earlier to kind of what we mentioned, talk about a little bit about the people. I think there's a big overall blanket where you can say, just get better at soft skills in general. Again, as you start transitioning into a leadership role, your technical skills alone are not going to help you partner with people, to make people want to come work with you, to help lead people well. You need to learn a different set of skills. And for me, if I had to pick one, I would say servant leadership. Again, learning early on that your role as a manager and leader now is not, I think maybe the expectation of somebody early in that kind of phase of their career is like, okay, I'm your boss, and now I'm going to tell you what to do. And you're kind of seeing that like you're at the top of the pyramid. I think it's just going to be a natural inclination. Whereas really you're best served when you become a leader by kind of flipping that pyramid over, and you are serving the people that you're managing. And that is really the concept of servant leadership. So I always encourage, when you start getting into a leadership role, start learning that kind of stuff early on and start developing that mindset. It's just going to help you form much better relationships and be much more effective as a leader kind of right from the beginning.
That's a really good word. Thank you for sharing that. So I hate to assume, but I assume that you didn't get into this role without some help from a mentor or a coach. Can you tell us about that person or persons who helped you get here?
Yeah, I've been very blessed along the way in my career to be surrounded by good people who kind of had my best interest at heart. It's almost like, there's a Tim Ferriss book. Tim Ferriss is a podcaster and an author, and he has a book called Tribe of Mentors, where he kind of lists out all these different people who have kind of played a mentorship role for him. And it's really valuable. I mean, I think of the same way. I kind of have this tribe of mentors, some people who I've never even met, or people aren't even alive. Somebody like a Marcus Aurelius, who's a Stoic philosopher, and reading Stoicism and the words of Marcus Aurelius, like mentorship for me of how I should proceed with my life and myself as a leader, all the way through, authors and everything, today. But in real life, again, I've been really blessed to be surrounded by some good people. There's a manager somebody I reported to early on in my career, Bruce Knoll, who was kind of, as I first came into like a management role, he was my manager. And he just taught me something very important about kind of believe in the people that you lead. And I don't know if I would be where I'm at today without the belief that Bruce had in me, that I could do this, and the encouragement he gave me to kind of develop myself and become a leader. So, Bruce was important that way. I have a coach today, John Warfel, that I've been working with for, 7 years now, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Yeah, another great mentor. But it's a great question and a great point.
Yeah, very important to have a mentor. I learn from, we speak with leaders on the Journey podcast every single week, and everybody's had a mentor, from whether it's their mother, their father, to a supervisor or a coach. And it's so important because we can't get anywhere without having, somebody speaking into our lives and saying, this is how you can move forward. You have the skills and the capability in yourself, but you need somebody to believe in you to do that. So tell me, what's one lesson that your job in IT leadership that has taught you that you think they could translate into anybody's job in any industry, that you think anybody should learn at some point in their life?
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit of an unsexy answer, Nate, but I'm going to say time management. Time management is priority management. I mean, like, time is the currency of our lives. This is kind of the currency we have in our career and our personal lives to get the things done that we need to get done. And we all have the same amount of it. And anybody who struggles with kind of keeping up, my first question is going to be, how are you managing your time, and are you focusing on the right things? I learned that early on in my management career. I mean, I was the classic jot it down on a sticky note, try and keep it in my head. All of a sudden I would be like, oh crap, we needed to have this thing done by this date. And I forgot about it. Or my one sticky note was buried under 12 other sticky notes. I learned that I needed to systematize time management. I needed to have a process and a framework in order to make sure that my attention is spent on the most important things that deserves my attention. So again, just time management. I think anybody at any point in their lives, no matter who you are, is going to benefit from managing their time more effectively.
Well, we appreciate you taking your time to be with us today. So, and just telling us a little bit about yourself and giving us your wisdom. So tell us what's one thing that you do in your job that almost no one agrees with you about?
Yeah. So what comes to mind here is, so I'm throughout the pandemic, I've become a little more active on social media. I'll post some stuff, about technology leadership and stuff on Twitter and LinkedIn. And, I'm not tweeting controversial stuff at all. But the one thing that I will kind of get, negative feedback on from people is when and it's something I firmly believe in, that soft skills are greater than technical skills, that in the end, your career success will be driven by your soft skills more than your technical skills. And look, in tech, it's almost table stakes. We are going to have to continue to maintain our technical skills. We're going to have to stay current with latest, greatest technologies. We will quickly become irrelevant unless we're just fortunate enough. If you're like the COBOL developer who still has one of the 12 COBOL programming jobs or whatever left, and you've just done COBOL programming your whole life, and you got lucky enough to kind of fall into a niche.
I'm so sorry for that person.
But for most of us in tech, you have to constantly keep our tech skills up to date, table stakes. But when I kind of when I say, something like I've tweeted something like a mediocre developer with great soft skills will have a much more successful career than a great developer with mediocre soft skills. And I'll kind of get some haters a little bit from that, but I stand by that. That really, in the end, you're going to hit a ceiling with technical. So probably whatever profession you might be in, the technical aspect of that job at some point might limit you, unless you're a rocket scientist or something like that. And there's obviously going to be certain professions where just being strictly technical is going to help you have a really great career. But for most of us, in the end, it's improving our soft skills that are going to really continue to open up those doors to level up.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and really I believe that so much myself. So I agree with you about that, even though maybe others won't. So tell me, what are some underrated tools or tool that you couldn't do your job without?
So I'm going to go back to time management. So my underrated tool is Microsoft Outlook. Microsoft Outlook, people may just think email client. We know they got a calendar in there and
Yeah.
all that. It's, I think a lot of people kind of find out like, oh, I didn't even know there was a calendar in there. I didn't even know there was a task list in there. And my life is run through Microsoft Outlook. Again, one of those moments of kind of at what point did you learn this stuff? When my wife, when we were pregnant with our first son, Trevor, and he was born, I came, I spent a couple of weeks at home with her and was catching up on some stuff. And this is when I realized I was buried. I had no idea what was important and whatnot. And I read this book called Take Your Life Back. I think it's about managing your time management in Microsoft Outlook. And I have now, my son's 15. I still use Outlook every day. I'm pretty much all digital. As an IT person, I'm all digital in my time management, but I print out my one sheet. I allow myself to print out every day, which is my calendar. It's Friday, so it's a little bit light, but my tasks that are due today, and all of it's in Outlook. And again, that, kind of the biggest thing I learned was get it on the calendar. So these aren't just meetings, and you can tell by the color coding. Some of them are just tasks. Like I'm saying, okay, this time on Friday, I am blocking off to do this thing I need to do. So just learning to get your tasks onto your calendar. Because again, if they float around on a task list, you can just scan your tasks up and down and be like, oh, what do I feel like doing today? And you never get the important stuff that maybe you don't feel like doing, but you need to do. And to me, getting it blocked up on my calendar is just a commitment I'm making from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock today. I'm committing myself that I'm going to be on the Journey podcast. And all I really have to do once I do that is just honor my calendar. So, but Outlook lets you do all that stuff, calendar, task, categories, prioritization, all that. It's a really powerful tool for time management.
And maybe to plug the tool, because it's one of my favorite tools as well. They've got a lot of insights and suggestions in there where it learns how you work.
Right.
And helps you even manage your time even more efficiently, and maybe follow up on those things you forgot to do in the first place because of the things got in the way. So
yeah,
Outlook, not a sponsor yet. So
you go. Think big.
That's right. That's what we got to do. All right. So what other occupation other than what you've done in IT leadership, what would you like to try?
It's funny, when I first went to college, I went for pre-forestry because I wanted to work outdoors. I thought, okay, I'm gonna work outdoors. I don't think I even really paid enough attention to what forestry was really about. I got into college and it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. So, it's kind of like when I was younger, I wanted to work outdoors, and I still love being outdoors. So maybe something outdoors. Another thing I've started doing, during the pandemic is writing. I've kind of written a couple ebooks / guides on different things. You can probably tell I'm working from home right now. Our organization switched to a work from home organization through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And just time that you buy back what used to be commute time and whatnot. And I've kind of used that time to start writing. So I've really kind of enjoyed that, writing, putting a couple books out. So I'll go writer.
So any interesting hobbies you're willing to share with us that you enjoy outdoors?
Kind of a lot of the outdoor stuff. One, just walking. My wife and I every night do a 2 to 3 mile walk together. Really good. Love just getting the fresh air, being outside. My son and I will go hiking and camping and fishing. So, I think just kind of your classic outdoor type activities. Good to be in nature too. Good to be in the woods. Good to be around trees. So definitely like hiking and fishing and stuff like that.
Lots of great hiking opportunities in Northeast
Oh, yeah.
Ohio. I love hiking myself through the national parks and many of the Cleveland and Akron metro parks. So if you're going to visit Cleveland, come hike some of our parks here.
Yeah,
all right. Thanks for being on the Journey podcast today, Michael. A couple rapid fire questions here at the end. You mentioned you read a lot. You read a lot of books. So can you give me your 3 books you would recommend to the audience?
Yeah. So I will say, because maybe some things we touched on. One, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It's kind of the Bible, if you will, of emotional intelligence. Great book to read on how, kind of a little bit of the science behind it and how to become more emotionally intelligent. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Another one of those kind of Bibles, if you will, of personal and professional development and soft skills. He covers a lot of that, and just a lot through his 7 habits, just a lot of great things for any leader, or really almost anybody at all to learn. And then I'll come out of maybe left field a little bit with this one, but I would recommend A Guide to the Good Life by William Irvine, as I think maybe I touched on earlier, or I'm a huge fan of Stoicism. Stoicism, the philosophy of Stoicism, has just benefited me so much in my career and my life. And A Guide to the Good Life by William Irvine is just a really great primer on what Stoicism is and how you can practice it in your life.
Fascinating. Yeah, great. Some great reads there. All right, this is maybe a little bit different than a question you would typically get on on an interview with your type of job, because you're not an entrepreneur per se, but if I was starting a business today and I'm going to end up leading people and leading customers, what's one word of wisdom you would give me?
Yeah, I would tell you to play the long game. I think too many people in life and in business maybe play the short game, and they make decisions based on right now. And obviously emergency situations pop, a lot of times we need to make decisions based on right now. But what you don't want to do is just continuously make decisions based on right now. You need to be thinking about the long game. You need to make decisions that maybe don't help us that much right now, but are really going to be helping us 3 years down the road or 5 years down the road from now. Playing the long game, thinking in maybe bigger scales than just what's happening today. Again, you need to do both, and there needs to be a balance there. But always, as best you can, try to be strategic and play the long game.
That's a good word right there. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I've asked you a lot of questions today, Michael, but was there one question you wish I would have asked you, a burning question that you'd like to share with the audience? Is there a question like that?
Nate, I can't think of one. I think you did an excellent job. I think we got to touch on a lot of things through this that, again, would be something I want to get the word out. If you're going to be a leader, really, I think a lot of what we've encapsulated here is just focusing on yourself, building yourself, work on yourself harder than your job, work on those soft skills, work on the skills that, you have to, again, always keep your technical skills up to date. That's, again, table stakes, but work on yourself and work on your soft skills. I think if there's any message I would have to give here, that we probably covered that quite a bit here. So Nate, nothing jumping to mind that we didn't cover.
So you mentioned you've written a couple of books. How can the listeners get to know you, find you online, and engage with Michael McGill?
Yeah, I think the hub of it really is Twitter. My Twitter handle is @McGillMD921. So I think that's just kind of the hub, and from there, I have LinkedIn. I write some articles on Medium as well, but I kind of think of the hub of kind of all that kind of happens on Twitter. And if you're interested in kind of any of the stuff I had to say, you'll see a lot of that on Twitter and kind of be able to go from there. I also have a website, Michael D, as in David, michaeldmcgill.com, that I do some writing and some stuff on too.
Fantastic. Go check out michaeldmcgill.com, learn more about Michael, and just his wisdom and experience in IT leadership is just indispensable. If you're looking for just a career in leadership or a career in IT leadership, or maybe you just got promoted, this is definitely somebody to engage with and just learn from him. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today, Michael, and just talking with us through the Journey podcast. And the audience won't even know this, but also seeing that we had technical difficulties here today, and just being patient, and just a great guest with us today. If anybody probably knows about technical difficulties, it's probably you, and all of the challenges that come with that. Just really appreciate your time here, and thanks for being on the journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nate. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Bye.